today's tax talk here on a Wednesday evening. Thanks so much. I am your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy, and we are going to talk about offers in compromise. Now, offers in compromise are very common and a lot of misnomers about offers in compromise. So let's get started. Let's get started right away. So again, thanks so much for joining us here today. I'm happy to crush some myths about the offer in compromise. I always tell my clients, if I asked 500 clients who wants an offer in compromise, right? 500 hands go up. I want one of those. Everybody wants one of those. I want one of those. I want one of those. Everybody wants an offer in compromise. And this is what you hear on the radio so much or on the television, you could pay the IRS pennies on the dollar. And here's the catch. If you qualify, right? So it's not Crypto Tuesday, even though that's what it says on there. It is the offer in compromise. So let's do that because it is the offer in compromise. And you use this form 656. The IRS has a form for everything. And now I'm going to change the offer in compromise. Unless I go back to that. But again, now if I asked 500 of my clients, who wants an offer, right? 500 hands go up. I want that. I want that. So let's talk about the offer and why everybody wants it. And then what's the real numbers? What's that about? How does that all work? Okay, so the offer, and I had a gentleman who owed the IRS a fair amount of money, and he got a settlement. His dad died and left him a bunch of money. And this happens. A lot of people get money somewhere. They owe the IRS money. They're in a currently not collectible status, or maybe they're in an installment agreement or some other agreement with the IRS, and then they come into some money, and then they call me and say, "Hey, Attorney Leahy, can we offer them, like half of the money I owe, and I'll give it to them right now. This is the kind of negotiation that works with most creditors, right? So if I'm behind in my payments to my credit card company, and I call them, I say, I know I owe you $10,000. I've got $5,000 cash right now. Would you take it? Maybe they would. There's a good chance. Maybe there'd be some negotiation in between the $10,000 and $5,000, and they would take less, and they would be happy to get it, because the longer that a bill is unpaid, the more unlikely it is that it'll ever be paid, right? So, and creditors know this, and that's why there's a lot of companies out there that buy these old debts and pay pennies on the dollar. There's that term again, pennies on the dollar, and so a lot of people think that that can happen with the IRS, but here's the real answer. The real answer is an offer in compromise is not when I go to the IRS and say, "Hey, IRS, will you take 10%? Will you take 15%? Will you take half? Will you take?" It's a calculation. They use this form that's here on the screen, form 656. And this form, it looks at all your income, looks at all your expenses, looks at all your assets, and then does a calculation based on those numbers. Okay, and the calculation first looks at your disposable income, and then you multiply that by a multiplier, and that multiplier can be 12 or 24, depending on what offer you're going to make. If you do a 12-month, then they want 20% down. And then whatever the offer is, they want 20% up front. And if they deny the offer, they keep the 20%, right? They're not giving it back to you because you owe them money, right? So they're not going to give it back to you. And it's going to take the IRS some time. Now with COVID, it may be more than a year. And I've had many cases that even before COVID that were almost a year or over a year before that you get a decision from the IRS. So you don't just call up and say, "Hey, I got some money. Would you take less?" And they say, "Sure, send it in." That's not the way it works, right? There's a calculation. It's a formula. And here's the part of the formula that people don't understand. With that part, I could say disposable income multiplied by 12, and that's what I want to settle for. But the part that usually catches people, actually there's two parts, but the first one is what's your assets. So if I have equity in my home, for instance, and it's enough to pay the IRS, well, the IRS will never agree to an offer in compromise because they could take my home and sell it and get the money out of my home and pay them. Okay, so they're not going to agree. If I have a lot of money in a retirement account, right? Again, they're not going to agree to take less. I have the money to pay them from my retirement account. They can come and take the retirement account, so they will not agree. If I have enough assets to pay them, they will not agree. And the second thing I want to talk about is what the IRS calls doubt to collectability. And what doubt to collectability is just that. You have to prove to the IRS that they're never going to get paid. Right, so there's not going to be an installment agreement. That there's not going to be any other way for them to get paid, and so then they'll consider an offer. But if they believe that you're going to be able to pay them, well, then they won't accept an offer, and they almost never will accept an offer. And this is just the cold hard facts. And so then people say, well, why is it that I keep hearing about this? Get the Fresh Start program. You could pay the pennies on the dollar, and then everybody calls. And here's why they push this, because it's an easy sale. Right? If I called if I told you, hey, who wants to pay less? And as I already mentioned to you, if I ask my clients, who wants to offer? Everybody puts up their hand. I want one of those. I want an offer. I want an offer. And again, very few people get the offer. So recently, and I've been quoting the 2018 statistics for some time. They were slow at coming out the 2019 data book. Every year, the IRS comes out with a data book, and it's got nothing but numbers, right? The IRS has all the numbers. And this is why when if you're in a certain industry and you're taking deductions in that industry, the IRS has all this information that they gather. And so if your deductions are beyond the norm, well, then you're likely to get audited, right? Because they know what the normal or the average company in that type of industry, what do they usually cost them to run? Okay, so they know those numbers. And again, when your numbers are different, this is what causes an audit. There's a red flag, and they will audit you for that. So I wanted to go in. I want to talk about this is a little hard to do on this show, and especially if you're using a phone or something like that. If you could put it up on a bigger screen, it'll help you. But I wanted to. But it's something that I want to that I really do want to share with you. So let's go into this. To these numbers. Now, these are the numbers from the IRS. Again, they have a data book, and I've been using these are relatively new. In the last couple of weeks, the IRS came out with these numbers. Okay, so the first one I want to point out to you is the number of closed accounts here. So let me see if I can highlight this. So right here, the number of closed accounts from the IRS. Okay, so this has to do with closed collections accounts. So when you owe the IRS money, you're in collections. Okay, and so how many people did they solve those problems, put them in some sort of remedy, offer in compromise, currently not collectible status, installment agreement, something, and those are really the big ones. So how many did they settle? Well, they settled 7,401,452. The year before, you'll see in 2019, they settled 9,887,113. In 18, they settled about 8.7 million cases in 2018. So you see that in last year they settled less cases. Well, a lot of people, COVID, right? So they were closed much of the year. Most people weren't dealing with the IRS because the IRS wasn't coming after anybody, so they didn't. So again, So right here, it's 7.4 million cases were settled by the IRS. Closed, I should say. So, and then, so here's the new beginning inventory is 11 million. So they still have 11 million cases. They had 11 million cases pending, right? They got 4.5 million new accounts, and they settled 7,400,000. And that leaves the new number is 8,476 cases. 950 are now pending. So I want to go down to this. Here is the numbers for the offer and compromise. And here, I'm going to pull this up so you can see it above my shoulder here. And then I will highlight it so you can see it because it's so important that you understand this. So here are the numbers. The number of offers received. So now remember, it's 7.4 million is the number of cases closed, or for the IRS, 7.4 million. They received 44,000 offers in compromise. Of those 44,000, right? And here's the big number, and I'm going to highlight that for you. Of that 44,000. 14,288 cases offers were accepted. So about a quarter of all those offered. But of those offered, right, of the settled, they settled 14,000. But again, the number the number of cases they settled was 7.4 million. Well, that means 14,000 of those cases, of the 7.4 million, that's what were settled. That's about 0.002% of the cases. So 0.2% so not 2%, not 1%, 0.2% of all cases were settled with offers in compromise. So what does that tell you? That tells you that when somebody is saying, hey, and I get this a lot, people call me, I want an offer. And I said, everybody wants an offer. I get that. Everybody wants an offer. I want an offer. Well, I don't really owe the IRS money. But if it were easy, right, this is what I would want. I would want an offer. Everybody wants an offer. Okay, but from the statistics that I'm showing you, so what happens is you hire a firm. They say they advertise and say, hey, we're going to get you pennies on the dollar. And you hire them. They do the paperwork and send in the offer. And that's this form 656. And they send in the offer. Now, as I mentioned, it's going to take months before you find out if it's going to be accepted. In the meantime, the IRS is not going to come after you. They're not going to be collectible. They're not going to put you in collections. They're not going to freeze any of your bank accounts. They're not going to come after your wages. They're not, they'll still send you letters, but they're not coming after you. And so you take a breath. Wow. I guess this is working. They're not coming after me. It's been 6 months and they haven't bothered me. Oh, and then you get the call and they'll put it in writing and they'll send it to you and say, you've been denied. Okay. And a lot of times now, one of the reasons why they deny you is it takes so long for them to get to your case that there's a very good chance that your situation has changed. Your income has changed. Your expenses have changed. So there's a very good chance that happened, that it's changed. And so if it has changed, well, the offer's off the table because things are different now. And again, you have to prove that there's doubt to collectability. And so that's another reason why they will deny you, right? And so, as I mentioned now, we're talking about 0.2% of all cases are settled this way. So if you're one of the 45,000 that sent in an offer, 44,809 sent in an offer, only 14,000 are even accepted. Okay, less than 25% of those that were sent in. Now, most practitioners, ethical practitioners, they're not going to send in an offer that's not going to be considered. I mean, it's just a waste of time. And what people don't understand is when you send in an offer, that time that the offer is sent in Between the time you send it in and the time they consider it, as I mentioned, you're not in collections. So they're not coming after you. So they're not bothering you. So they're adding that to the statute of limitations, the CSED. And that's enough. We'll talk about that in another time. I have lots of videos out there about the CSED, collection, statute, expiration date. Okay, so that's how long the IRS can come after me. Well, if I file an offer and it's denied, that time that they considered the offer gets added to the collection statute, right? Expiration date. Okay, so now the IRS has more time to come after me. And so what happens is a lot of times people will send in an offer, it'll be denied. They'll send in another one, and that'll take another year, and that'll be denied. And they'll send in another one, and that will be denied. And over and over and over, all you're doing is extending the time that the IRS can come after you. And what most people who are having IRS problems want is an end to the IRS problems, right? I don't want to continue them. I don't want this to go on forever. And again, most people who hired me, they have been going on forever, right? And so that's where this comes in. So I wanted to share those numbers with you because they're so powerful. Now, these numbers I just showed you, that's the IRS's numbers. That's not my numbers, right? I got this from the IRS. And you can go to irs.gov and you can get these numbers too. They're right there on their website. And they're, again, the IRS is chock full of numbers. And here's the numbers about collection. And so these are their own numbers about what numbers who gets accepted to an offer in compromise. So I hope that kind of, lifts the veil of the mystery of the offer in compromise and why I think that most people that are offering it to you are not now maybe they don't understand it. And I think a lot of people don't understand it. Even those that are in this business and try to help people, they don't know. I tell you that usually your accountant will say, let's do an offer because they've heard about it, but they don't know anything about offers, right? That's not what they do. They don't advocate to help people with IRS problems. That's what we do. That's what Open Tax Advocates does. So if you have a problem, if you need help, then you should call somebody who knows how to help you. And that's where Open Tax comes in. So if you're having a problem though, I'm going back to let's go back to, but if you're having a problem and you need help, now again, if you have a problem, you should get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. It doesn't cost anything. Go to freeirsbook.com. Again, freeirsbook.com. Get a copy of my book. It details all of these different options, talks about offers and compromise, talks about installment agreements. So, maybe I could go over the installment agreements at another time and the numbers here because the numbers, they're clearly, they show there. Maybe we'll do that the next couple of days. We'll talk about installment agreements and why this is usually the option that people get. Okay, so if you're if you're watching this, you learn something. I hope you have, because that's my purpose, right? Is that to inform people. Then I'm going to ask you, subscribe, share this content. People need to know this, right? You hear all these commercials. Everybody wants an offer, and it's why is that? So subscribe, share. I'd appreciate it. I thank you so much for your time here today, and let me just reset this so we can do a graceful exit. Thanks so much for your time. And I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.